Hello, everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining our first event for Farm to School Month. We have an exciting conversation planned for today that is centered around improving hands-on learning with a farm on campus. Obviously, 2020 has presented a range of complex challenges to the education sector. So we feel it's really critical to hear the actual stories about adapting to these challenges with new strategies and ideas. So today we have the pleasure of talking to Jack Levine, who we originally spoke to actually this year about his business Town to Table and how it's expanded and now helping schools like Catholic Memorial in Boston run engaging, successful farming programs right on campus. And we are also so lucky to be joined by Brian Palm, who is the assistant head of school and head of the middle school at Catholic Memorial. Hey, Jack. Hey, Brian. Thanks for joining us today.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
We're doing well, thanks. Doing well. Can't be doing too bad with lots of good fresh produce in the background here, you know?
Yeah, it looks phenomenal. It definitely beats those fake Zoom backgrounds. So to start, Jack, I actually want you to kick things off. Can you just give us a quick introduction to yourself and Town to Table?
For sure, yeah. So hey everybody, I'm Jack Levine. We are standing together in Catholic Memorial's Freight Farm. And my company, Town to Table, helps schools and nonprofits integrate educational farming programs and gardening programs that include hands-on learning through student internships and field trips on campus. And this partnership with Catholic Memorial is actually taking place right on campus with them.
Great. And Jack, you are very uniquely suited to be running farming programs like this at school. So can you give us a little bit of background about your experience?
I learned about freight farms actually at my college, Clark University, out in Worcester. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to manage our urban agriculture initiatives, which included operating our farm for campus. And it really allowed me to get an inside look of how impactful something like this can be for a community, not only our college community, but also the local Worcester type of projects. And while I was there, I was spending a lot of time on the farm, and it actually counted as a course for me. So it counted as a business course where I was able to write the business plan that became Town to Table. And basically, this became a career for me that, you know, not something that I was ever exposed to before college. And what we're looking to do is have students of all ages come into these things and learn about hydroponic growing, but also, you know, accessory business skills and a number of different educational components that can be tied into this. And Clark really let me see firsthand how impactful that can be.
I think your story is so incredible because a lot of schools are interested in getting these farming programs started on campus to give students experiential learning. And you actually took that a step further and really applied it after you actually graduated with Town to Table. So that business plan actually ending up evolving into your career is pretty phenomenal. And I think it's like such a success story. So tell us a little bit more about Town to Table and what services you actually offer.
For sure. So we kind of describe them as two service lines that intersect and overlap. So we grow food using freight farm containers that we own in Boston and serve local markets and groceries. And at the same time, we provide and work with nonprofits and schools to run educational programming that allows students to kind of step into these spaces, as well as program participants from nonprofits. And to us, they overlap by having students come help grow food that is then sold in a commercial setting. And, you know, what more real world program can you have on a school campus than that? And it's also very empowering for students to grow food that's then their families and they're able to then go to local market and purchase. So those are kind of our two service lines and how they come together.
So why hands-on learning with farming? You kind of just touched upon it, but I want you to dive a little bit more into depth on why farming and what's beneficial.
Definitely, yeah. So here, I like to use myself as an example where as a student, I had a hard time sitting still. and I got a freight farm, and they told me this is a class for you. And learning while moving is something that is really impactful for a lot of students. And that's where we saw the farm as not only helping students understand the food growing process, but also a chance to kind of work on business skills with us. And so we have students, we're a small team here, and we have students help us on marketing, business development, sales, and we can kind of take it past farming and use farming as a way for students in the freight farm as a tool for students to express their creativity. And we really try to allow them to guide that and help find what they're interested in, and then for us to just be a back-end resource on that side of things.
Yeah, I love that you say that it's more than just farming. It extends to so many other disciplines that are applicable to students learning. So Brian, I'd like you to jump in here as well, and thank you again for joining us today. Do you mind just first starting out by introducing yourself and kind of what you do at CM?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's great to be here and wonderful to be involved in this conversation. It's an important conversation, and I think to your point, talking about how to operate even in the environment that we're operating in, and creating these meaningful experiences for kids at schools is sort of, that's our challenge as educators right now. So we're excited to be here with you all, sharing this moment and sharing our experience doing that. So my name is Brian Palm. I am the assistant head of school here at Catholic Memorial. I'm the head of the middle school, and I also serve as the director of operations. So in a total mishmash of too many job descriptions for any one sane person, these are the things that I'm involved in. I'm also the former science department chair, so and a teacher of AP Environmental Science. So interestingly, a lot of my sort of background on the academic side ties really well into some of the work that Jack's going and doing here. I taught in biology, 9th grade biology here too at the school. So I'm interested in some of those curricular connections between what's going on out here and what's also happening in our classroom, and really trying to strengthen.
Great. Sorry. I think there's
that's right.
little bit of a lag in
Got
the
it.
connection. So thank you all for bearing with us. So what role does hands-on learning actually play at Catholic Memorial?
So yeah, I mean, Jack mentioned sort of his challenge of sitting still, and we're an all boys school here at Catholic Memorial. And so we recognize that boys are not only relational learners, and that they have to be connected to their learning with either the relationships that they have with their peers or their adults, but also connected through that sort of idea of movement, seeing, and hands-on learning. And so that's something that has become sort of core and fundamental to everything that's happening in all of our classrooms here at Catholic Memorial. So we are now, we got our freight farm. We were lucky enough to have some donations by Suffolk Construction and Delbrook Construction back in 2016 that provided us with this freight farm and allowed us to really sort of take a full jump into this environment. And we've been managing that. Our head farmer here, Sean Cusson, is also a middle school and high school teacher. He teaches physics in a critical making engineering class that we have here as well. And Sean has been running our program here for our boys, where we have had students do sort of competitions to see who can sell more and who can produce more. We've been donating to local food banks. We've been donating to Pine Street Inn. We've been having farmers markets and a range of different things here on campus over the last 4.5 years. Jack came to us this spring, late spring, early summer, with this sort of proposal for a partnership. And when he spoke to us, it just rung true and said, great, yes, these are all of the issues that we're having. It's hard for us to manage the day-to-day. It's hard for us to manage the sort of cyclical vacation, not vacation, in school, away from school sort of cycle that happens in a normal school year, let alone a COVID school year. And so when his team presented this, and with the idea that their mission was so aligned really with our mission here, there was a sort of hand in glove, really easy decision for us to say, yes, that makes sense. we're going to offboard some of the stuff that is sort of less fun, more operational to you all, and then work with you to then think about the opportunities where we can provide those moments for our boys.
Amazing. So can Jack, and you can jump in a little bit here, but let's talk about that intersection between Town to Table and Catholic Memorial. And I think this is just a perfect real world example of you applying your business to an actual educational learning environment. So can you dive a little bit more into how that works?
Definitely, yeah. So how it works here is my team is going to operate the farm, and we, as you can see, have been growing. While Catholic Memorial's side of things is going to be more focused on student programming and basically more student-centric there. And so we're coordinating with a teacher who's our contact person, and we kind of are going to build out programming for students, while our team is really taking care of the whole farm to make sure that this farm is always running at optimal capacity and running to its full potential. And for us, we were, as Brian mentioned, we were kind of able to take that off of CM's plate, and they can really then focus on student interaction and student engagement using this as a learning tool.
Great. So Brian, how, I know you've had the Freight Farm on school for quite a few years, and now you're kind of transitioning operations, but what has been the response from students to the farm?
I mean, it's one of sort of, you know, a number of good examples here for us, is that when boys become engaged at this level of learning, it stops becoming what they enjoy doing. And then they're picking up all of the skills, all the science that's sometimes in the background of this, all of the marketing that might be as a part of this, all of the finances that are a part of this. And when you're learning for the purpose of sort of this need to know kind of thing, that's sort of learning at its best. So you're not sitting there and saying, well, I'm just studying this because I'm studying it. You're studying it because you need to know it. And so you're applying that knowledge immediately to what it is that you're doing. And so really that's been the value here, and bringing the kids into this process where they are able to take something from a seed and literally grow it and remove it and then share that with the community. That's a really powerful process, right? This idea of growing even in an urban environment like Catholic Memorial is a city school in Boston. That's fantastic. You get to understand the industrial food system and what it looks like. You get to study food deserts and why it's hard to access green produce inside of certain cities and in different neighborhoods. And then the other kind of piece to it as well is we're a mission-driven school here that believes in service, and our students leading through service here at Catholic Memorial. And so the idea that whatever it is that we're doing is doing good for the greater community. And so that's been another point of emphasis for us, where what we do inside of the farm benefits other people outside of the farm.
That was going to be my next question, because I did know that service was a big part of your model there. So how exactly, you kind of brought it up previously about donations to local nonprofits, whether that's Pine Street Inn or the like. So how else do you expand the operations into or engage with your community?
Yeah, I mean, so that's something that we're actually we're really excited about doing with Jack and his team here as well, is that I think some of what this is going to allow us to do is take some of the focus off of the day-to-day, which can be consuming for an operation like this, particularly when it's being run at a school, and allow us to think about those ways that we can more meaningfully impact larger segments of our local community here with what we're doing inside of this. So it had been sort of these weekly donations that we were doing to some local area food banks, Pine Street Inn, that sort of thing. That was the way that we were really kind of connecting with our community. Interestingly, it might be that a food bank doesn't necessarily want the fresh produce, but instead would like to be supported financially. And wouldn't that be neat if we could find a way to turn the produce here into dollars to then donate the dollars and allow a food bank to do what it chooses with those dollars, instead of having to sort of deal with a slug of lettuce coming in once every 2 weeks or once every week. So I think that's the other piece to it too. I think we'll explore different, maybe CSA options with our community, with our faculty, different things like that, that might allow revenue, that might have sort of positive spin from that perspective, that we could then look to donate out to the numerous groups that CM has, built relationships with over time.
Amazing, great. So Jack, kind of to turn it back over to you, since you have so much experience working with schools when it comes to farming programs, how do you develop the structure of what students actually get involved in? Is it based on what the needs of the school is, or what's that conversation like when you're actually building the specific programs?
Yeah, so there's definitely a balance there, and we really try to be open and collaborate with students, but also faculty. But for us, our goal is to kind of let students find their interest and then help guide it from there. So whether that be a student who wants to work on the lights, or test the water for what plants are uptaking, what type of nutrients, all the way to helping us make a better label for our retail product. So we kind of want to be flexible there and let students really guide their learning, and then let us be a back-end resource for them to help push that forward. And for us, the goal there is, students can move on from our program and move on from Catholic Memorial and really be leaders and advocates for sustainability and for these type of programs elsewhere. And we think that this partnership can only help us, impact more students that way.
Great. Before we start to transition to some of the questions that we've been getting, is there anything else that you'd like to add or elaborate on, either Brian or Jack?
Yeah, I think it might be an interesting time too. You mentioned it earlier, was sort of this idea of like recognizing that this program is operating, and it will operate even in the environment that we're operating in right now. So I think that that's another kind of important piece too, is that, again, we're glad that Jack and his team are here to do some of the day-to-day stuff. That would be harder, but we can take some of what we are doing in here and move it to larger spaces where the boys can be socially distanced and in a safe environment from that perspective, and still contribute to the operation of the farm. So I think that that's an important note to sort of make here to viewers, is that this can still happen, and it is still happening despite sort of the, feeling of sort of the weight of COVID these days.
Yeah, for sure. And Brian, do you want to elaborate a little bit about how CM is kind of adapting to these new challenges and whatever operations you are kind of currently have in place to keep learning going?
Sure. Yeah. So we've been open. We've got our 6th week right now operating with students in our building. So I believe we were one of the first, if not the first, 7 through 12 program in the state of Massachusetts that got back to school. We were back about 4 days before Labor Day this year. We've adopted all of the sort of safety regulations that one might suggest. We've got one-way pathways in our hallways and stairwells, and protocols for getting drinks and eating lunch and going to the bathroom, and mask breaks. And we're operating a hybrid model. So we've got about half of our students in the building half of the time. But we're also doing some good work. We're really trying to focus on the social emotional development of the boys as well. That is one thing that we have definitely, that we know from firsthand experience. We also have heard from parents and families over the spring that the boys miss being with the boys, and the boys miss being with their teachers as well, and trying to provide those opportunities. Doing meaningful things has been a big part of it too. So we've been focusing on those other bits of programs too. Our sports program has been up and running now for about 3 weeks. We've got a pretty vibrant after school activity program. That's what we're going to be using to leverage. I think we've got 8 or 10 guys who are going to be working with Jack and his team here on in the farm or just outside of the farm, auxiliary to the farm over the next stretch. So, I think that's what we've been trying to do, is try and find those moments, try and find those ways within the guidelines and safety regulations as we need to be compliant with, and then make sure that we're serving the needs of the boys, because now more than ever, they need these times to be with their peers, to be allowed to be 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, and feel good about themselves in those moments.
I'm really glad that you brought up the social emotional component to everything that's going on, because we are living in such a high stress time, and especially for students and young children to be experiencing this and trying to provide them with a little bit of normalcy. And then I also just like to think about the ways that working with plants too, and something that has a complete life cycle and working with your hands can be so beneficial for mental health. So Jack, I'm curious if you can provide any kind of feedback or any information or your thoughts around that in particular.
Definitely, yeah. So we, outside of Catholic Memorial, we're actually partnered with a few other schools and nonprofits in the area that run smaller scale programs using classroom gardens. And those programs are really centered rather than about food production and commercial scale food production. They're more focused on therapeutic learning. And one of our partnerships that we really like to highlight is with Seven Hills Foundation out in Worcester, where we've been working with adults with disabilities. And the idea there is to use gardening and growing food as a way to spark volunteer and employment opportunities and build transferable skills to those employment opportunities. And so that program is all centered around using this as a therapeutic learning environment. And, they've introduced, I think, now 12 hydroponic gardens in Worcester, which, doesn't typically have a lot of indoor green space like that. And so to introduce that as a learning tool and a therapeutic tool has been super impactful for their community too.
Great. Yeah, that's perfect. And we see so many programs outside of even the school learning environment that focus specifically on developing those transferable skills and also just providing therapeutic learning environments. So for anyone that's listening that's interested in kind of outside of the education sector, definitely reach out. We have a lot of great case studies on how to apply this to topics like that. So are you guys ready for Q&A or anything else you want to add?
Good to go?
Good to go.
Okay. So we've been getting a few operational questions. So Jack, we can actually split this, but how much time do you spend on the farm program each week? Maybe that can be applied generally or to Catholic Memorial specifically.
Yeah, so here at Catholic Memorial, typically to get launched, it takes a little bit longer. So we were spending a little more time to get the farm up to full production. But once you're at full production, it is, if you're staying on top of stuff, it's, fairly easy to stay there, which is, as Brian mentioned, why the cycles of school kind of hurt production. But so I would say, we're spending probably, 10 to 20 hours on campus a week. Okay.
Great. And Brian, kind of the same question. What about class and prep time when it comes to interacting with the farm?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you asked Sean, who'd sort of been single-handedly running the farm over the last few years, he would have said it was almost an overwhelming amount in kind of addition to all of his classes that he was also doing on the side. And that's, again, why this partnership is one that makes a ton of sense for us to do that. What we're doing in our current year as we look forward is we're going to be operating this as an afternoon activity. So it's going to be taking place in sort of the 2:45 to 4 o'clock range on a daily basis. And so the boys will have the opportunity to interact on a daily basis with it for those who are involved in the club here. And again, depending on sort of their ability to be on campus and that sort of thing, it might be that they're only on campus for 2 of those days each week. But that'll still provide them with, sufficient experience and sufficient opportunity to interact.
Great. So Jack, this is kind of back to you. Definitely a lot of questions about your business model and if you're a nonprofit. So I think just reiterating to listeners that we kind of have 2 stories going on in this conversation. One is Jack's story of being a farmer at his university, Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts, and then graduating to start Town to Table, which now serves schools. But what's the other component of your business, Jack?
Yeah, so we also sell food to local markets. So if you pop to a market in Boston, hopefully we're there, Town to Table. You can look out for it. But yeah, so those are kind of the 2 sides of our business, one of which is we grow food and sell food to groceries, just like most freight farmers. But then we also have our educational service component that lets us do partnerships like this with Catholic Memorial.
Great. Yeah, so there's that like entrepreneurial side where you actually started this small business, and a component of it is serving schools. All right, so on that, how do you keep the food safety guidelines in line with like just distributing food, and what are your protocols? What do you follow?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we follow most of Freight Farm's protocols that they gave us, along with the city of Boston. And lucky for us, we're in the city of Boston where Freight Farm was founded. So these farms are typically right up to code. For student engagement, there is kind of a plan to space students out rather than having, 8 students come in here at once. There will be, 1 to 2 at a time with a few in an accessory space, doing, work that can help with the farm outside of the farm. So that does, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Perfect. So then this one actually goes to Freight Farm, so I'll just answer this one. A lot of questions about just how many schools currently have a Freight Farm. Last count we did, we've got about 44 schools, and that splits 22 universities and about 19 K-12 schools. Most recent school to get a farm was actually Auburn University, who will be using their farm for their horticulture development and dining program. So if anyone's interested in just seeing other case studies of how universities or K-12 schools are using their farm, again, it really ranges. Some just use it for dining hall production to kind of have a source of local food year round, because students are really craving that sustainable transparency piece in the food system. And then also just some just use it purely for hands-on learning and education, which is kind of like the Catholic Memorial model. So last question, I think I'm gonna have both of you answer this one. Jack, what are you hoping to pass on to the next generation of students? Are you hoping to inspire them to become farmers too, or what is your vision?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, if a student becomes a farmer, that's amazing. We're super excited about it, but that's not necessarily our goal. Our goal is to really provide equitable access to this type of technology, and to have students of all types and program participants of all types come into these settings and learn about this technology. And on top of that, kind of move on from our program. And I think I mentioned this, but, be kind of leaders in the advocacy for these type of programs and for the sustainability movement, particularly, past programs like Catholic Memorial who are already committing to this and going to whether it be a university or a place of work and saying, are you doing this? If so, I can be a leader. And if you're not doing it, how come we're not? And let's get to it. So that's kind of our hope for students, and, we'll see where it goes.
Amazing. Brian, kind of the same question. What are you hoping that students really take away from their experiences with the farm?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's multifaceted, to be totally honest. One is just sort of getting them to be involved in something that's connected to the real world is a tremendously powerful experience for the boys. And so when you do that, look, the hope is that when you go to high school, you find something that fires you up and gets you hooked on something. And that something then can, kind of provide the impetus and reason for doing a whole bunch of the other things that maybe you hadn't done as well before, or maybe you wanted to improve at. And so I think by offering a diversified set of experiences at the school, you can then hope to capture a wide range of students who is then, connected with something that means something to them. And so I think, having this, this is one of the things in the quiver, one of the arrows in the quiver that you might use and offer to the boys to say, here's what we've got. I think as well, this can introduce them to some pretty important ideas. My AP environmental science teacher's hat goes on, and it's then starts thinking about understanding the world that we live in, understanding how important our food supply is, understanding how important it is to focus on access and equity in the food system is also critically important. So this gets at a number of, the sort of larger Catholic school mission qualities that are really important for the boys to understand. And so, if they can get in and be like, wow, yeah, I did this and I understand food deserts at a whole lot more. And then I interacted with a food bank and I never really understood, the issues with food scarcity, a number of students, right? 20% of students in the state of Massachusetts are food insecure, right? And so hitting on and having those opportunities to get into those type of conversations here and having the Freight Farm be the nexus and the reason for why those questions are asked. That's the reason why you have something like this on campus.
Incredible. Well, we have reached the 12:30 mark, so I want to thank you both for your time. It has been inspiring to hear about Town to Table and Catholic Memorial, how you both come together to better serve students and your surrounding community. How can people stay in touch or up to date with what's going on in both your areas?
Pop on our Instagram. We're pretty active on Instagram, and we do a lot of cross collaboration with Catholic Memorial. We're hopeful that students will be able to launch like a video blog for what's going on in here as well. So yeah, I would say social media is probably the best way to keep up with what's going on.
Great, and we've got an active Facebook, Twitter, Instagram account as well here at school. Our website is wonderful. It's got a bunch of up-to-date news stories and that sort of thing as well. So jump on and take a look at the school. And see all the great things that we're doing.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jack and Brian. We hope to hear more about everything that you're doing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.